Sign this paper. Uncle Silas is paying $500 for you. That's exactly enough for the flat screen TV I want. My mother shoved the clipboard into my chest, blocking the doorway a wall of cold indifference. I was just 13 years old, shivering, standing there next to my suitcase already discarded. She sneered. You finally have a purpose, Carlin, buying me something nice. She didn't even look at me, her eyes fixed on the empty space on the living room wall where the new TV would go. I didn't cry. I took the pen. I signed the guardianship transfer, and without another word, I turned around. As I walked away, I understood the truth. My worth was $500, a price tag stamped across my soul, my existence. 15 years had passed since the day I signed away my life for a TV, and everything had changed. The 13-year-old girl who once stood on that snowy porch, abandoned and traded for a television, was gone. In her place was a 29-year-old woman, sharp, calculated and ruthless in her pursuit of truth. Uncle Silas had been the one to shape me not with bedtime stories or warm embraces, but with lessons in cold, hard logic. I didn't grow up hearing about fairy tales or dreams of a perfect family. I grew up learning to hunt liars. My childhood had been about survival. It wasn't about love or warmth. It was about what you could verify, what you could prove. And Uncle Silas taught me how to do both. He was the kind of man who didn't waste time with emotions. He saw the world as a series of transactions. People didn't matter to him, only their actions did. He used to sit in his library, the dim glow of a cigar hanging in the air, and say to me, "Carlin, tears are useless. Emotions are expensive, but receipts are free. Keep them all." Those words stuck with me. As a girl, I didn't understand them fully, but I absorbed them anyway. They became the foundation of everything I would grow up to be. Uncle Silas never asked for affection, only precision. He had me memorizing the fine details, the truths buried in black and white numbers, the way people couldn't hide what they didn't want you to see. That's where my expertise began to take shape, in the careful reading of lies, the meticulous study of discrepancies. He didn't coddle me. He didn't reassure me. He taught me how to read the world and how to protect myself from it. I had grown up without the things other children took for granted: love, safety, kindness. But what I had was far more valuable: a mind sharp enough to slice through the layers of deceit. By the time I left his house and stepped into the world, I had become exactly what he'd raised me to be: a machine of logic, a predator in a world full of prey. At 18, I stepped into the workforce ready to leave the past behind. But it wasn't easy. My biological parents, the same ones who had sold me for a TV, assumed I had disappeared forever. Maybe they thought I was dead, or maybe they just didn't care enough to wonder. Either way, they carried on with their lives, playing the grieving parents on television, while I lived my life as if nothing had ever happened. They didn't know I was watching. I had a digital folder on my secure server. I called it The Performance. It was full of clips of them standing on the same porch year after year, pretending they were brokenhearted. I let them lie. I didn't stop them. Instead, I let them think they were getting away with it. Every time Carolyn cried on camera, I saved the footage. Every fraudulent tax return Austin filed, I downloaded the public records. It was my way of making sure I never forgot what they'd done. As the years passed, I became good at what I did. So good, in fact, that I eventually found myself in a position that had seemed impossible to me at 13. I was a senior compliance officer for a private trust firm, a job where I hunted fraud. I scanned thousands of financial documents looking for that one tiny crack, the smallest mistake that could bring down the house of cards. I didn't need intuition or gut feelings. I didn't rely on guesswork. I trusted the hard data. Uncle Silas had taught me that nothing was ever truly gone if you knew how to find it. Now, I had become exactly what he trained me to be: a relentless auditor, a woman of facts and figures, a woman who could tear apart a lie with a single glance. The girl who had once been so easily discarded, so easily overlooked, had turned into a force. A woman who could expose the hidden truths of the world and do it with cold, surgical precision. For 15 years, my disappearance wasn't just a tragedy to them, it was an opportunity. Caroline and Austin, the people who had once called themselves my parents, had found a way to profit from the lie they'd told the world. They didn't see me as a child they had lost. They saw me as a cash cow, a way to keep their lives comfortable, while the world pitied them. I was the ghost they could use to line their pockets. I never disappeared completely from their lives, though. Oh no, they made sure I was still there in all the official ways. They never took me off the government rolls. They kept filing their tax returns year after year, claiming me as their dependent, as if I was still living under their roof, as if they were still taking care of me. It didn't matter that I hadn't been there for over a decade. They claimed me every single year, and with each false filing, they collected the benefits they weren't entitled to. My absence became their income. I never stopped watching, even from afar. It was my only way of holding on to the control they had taken from me when they traded me for a TV. Every year, I saw it play out: the sob stories, the fake tears, the donations rolling in, and the money flowing into their hands like it was water. And it was always so easy for them. They didn't even try to hide it. They were arrogant. They didn't think anyone would ever question it. They thought I was gone forever, just another lost child in the system. They assumed I had vanished without a trace, that I was nothing more than a tragic memory they could manipulate to their advantage. But they were wrong. I was watching. They didn't know it, but I was collecting evidence. Every time they paraded their grief in front of the camera, I saved the footage. Every fraudulent form they submitted, I kept a copy. They thought I was invisible. I let them think that. I wanted them to believe their own lies, to get comfortable in their deception, to think they had won. And every year they did the same thing. They went on television performing their sorrow for the cameras. Caroline, the perfect picture of a mother who had lost everything, always wearing black, always clutching a tissue, always crying into the microphone as if the whole world needed to feel sorry for her. She would speak about me like I was a ghost, a troubled daughter who had run away, never to return. They begged for help, for prayers, for donations, and the community responded. The sympathy poured in and they cashed in. It wasn't just the donations either. That was the easy part. What they didn't realize was that the real crime was hidden beneath the surface, buried in the fine print of their tax returns and government filings. They had claimed me as a dependent for years after I had vanished, years after they had abandoned me for that TV. They received monthly welfare checks, housing assistance, food stamps, all in my name. They claimed the child tax credit all while I was gone, all while they spent the money meant for me on new cars, vacations, and home renovations. Over the course of 15 years, they collected $180,000 in welfare benefits, all while pretending to be the grieving parents of a child they hadn't even cared for. They were stealing from the government, from the very people who had been kind enough to offer them assistance. But they were too careless, too comfortable in their lies to realize how easily everything could fall apart. I let them think they were getting away with it. I let them believe I was gone. I let them file those fraudulent tax returns, sign their names, and swear under penalty of perjury that they had supported me. I never spoke up. I never interfered. I didn't need to. Every form they filed, every check they cashed was another piece of evidence, another bit of proof for the day when I would bring it all down. I wasn't going to expose them now. I wasn't going to step in and stop them. Not yet. I was waiting for them to make the fatal mistake. And every year they did, they thought I had disappeared forever, but I had been gathering their lies, building my case in silence. They thought they were clever, that no one would ever question their story. They thought I was nothing but a sad memory, a lost child. But what they didn't realize was that I had grown up into someone far more dangerous than they ever imagined. I had learned the value of receipts, of records of proof. I had learned the language of fraud, and I knew how to speak it fluently. They didn't know it yet, but I was their reckoning, and I was ready. It was a rainy Tuesday in November when Uncle Silas passed away. He went quietly as he lived, without any fanfare, without drawing attention. There were no mourners flooding the room, no tearful eulogies, just a man who had lived his life on his own terms, and when it was over, he was done. The world he left behind was as cold and precise as he had been. I hadn't expected anything different from him. He wasn't the sentimental type. He didn't leave behind a legacy of affection or tears. What he left was far more valuable, his estate. I had always known that his wealth would go to me. He had no family left, no one else who could inherit his assets, but that didn't make the inheritance any less real. In his will, he left me everything. The assets included a prime commercial building in the heart of downtown, a diversified stock portfolio, and enough liquid cash to make anyone's head spin. The total value of it all was $12.5 million. He had made sure everything was airtight. There were no loopholes, no confusion. It was clear I was the beneficiary, the one who would carry on his legacy. But the moment the obituary hit the papers, my biological parents came out of the shadows like vultures. They had thought I was gone forever, were forgotten, abandoned. They had moved on with their lives, playing the role of the grieving parents to the public. But when they saw that number, that inheritance, the game changed. They smelled the money and they couldn't resist. 2 days after the obituary was published, they hired a lawyer, a man named Mr. Blight, whose billboards promised to fight for the little guy, but who mostly fought for a percentage of whatever he could get his hands on. They filed a motion to contest the will, claiming that as my natural parents, they had a right to the estate. They painted themselves as the wrong parents, claiming that I had manipulated Uncle Silas in his final days, that I had somehow coerced him into changing his will. The audacity of it was breathtaking. But it didn't stop there. They took their campaign straight to the media, feeding the public their version of the story. Carlin, the same woman who had once abandoned me for a TV, was now on the porch again, dressed in black, holding a tissue to her eyes. She cried, of course, but this time it was for the cameras. The reporter asked her about the inheritance, and she didn't hesitate. "We are not interested in the money," she said, her voice cracking with practiced emotion. We just want to protect our daughter's soul. He was a troubled child. She brainwashed my poor brother in his final days. We just want to bring the family back together and manage the estate responsibly." They were playing a master class in manipulation. The narrative was clear. They were the good parents, the saints, and I was the villain, the manipulator who had stolen from them. They wanted the world to see them as the ones who had been wronged, and they wanted to rewrite the history of everything. They were hoping the sympathy of the public would win the battle for them. They thought they could control the story, but what they didn't know was that I was already several steps ahead and their lies wouldn't go unchecked. The mediation was set for Friday morning, a cold, calculated meeting in a glass-walled conference room on the 42nd floor of a high-rise. The air conditioning was set just right, cool enough to make your skin prickle, but not cold enough to distract from the task at hand. I was ready and I was calm. It wasn't just about winning, it was about making them pay for every single lie they'd told. My parents, they thought they had me. They thought they were walking into a negotiation. But what they didn't know was that I had already set the trap. I had carefully prepared my evidence. Every year, every single tax return they had filed, every fraudulent claim, every benefit they had collected, everything was there neatly, stacked in a folder. And that wasn't all. I had something they never saw coming. I had video footage, real, unedited proof of the moment they sold me. It wasn't just a moment. It was the moment. The one that would make everything they had done undeniable. It had taken years to gather all of this, years of watching, waiting, and letting them make their mistakes. They didn't even know I had it all. They thought they were dealing with a frightened little girl. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I was a woman with a purpose, and my purpose was to make sure they never got away with what they had done. I arrived early at the mediation, well before they even had a chance to arrive. I walked into the room, took my seat at the far side of the long mahogany table, and folded my hands in front of me. I made sure to look as unremarkable as possible. The last thing I wanted was for them to sense any hint of my plan. I wanted them to feel comfortable, confident that they were in control. They didn't know it, but they were already walking into my trap. When they finally arrived, they were exactly what I expected, carrying their arrogance like a shield. Caroline, of course, led the way, her chin held high, her eyes scanning the opulent office as if she were the one in charge. Austin trailed behind her, looking nervous, but you could see the greed in his eyes. Victoria, the quiet one, followed last, her complaints about the price of valet parking, filling the room with the usual obnoxious entitlement. They didn't even acknowledge me at first. They walked right past me, assuming I was nothing more than the scared, abandoned child they had abandoned. Caroline dropped her designer bag on the table with a loud thud, making sure the whole room knew how important she was. Austin didn't even look at me. To them, I was just a means to an end, the one thing standing between them and $12 million. The lawyer, Mr. Blight, was there too, looking eager to get things started. He was slick, well-practiced in manipulation, but I could see the nervous tension in his shoulders as he looked at the papers in front of him. I didn't need to say anything. Grace, my lawyer, was ready. She slid a piece of paper across the table, a kinship verification affidavit. "Because the will is being contested," she said, "we need a sworn statement that you maintained a continuous parental relationship with the beneficiary from 2010 to today." It was bait. Perfect bait. They read the fine print, but they didn't stop. Caroline's eyes locked on the dollar signs. Greed made her blind. She grabbed the pen first and signed it with a flourish. Austin hesitated, just for a moment, but that was enough. It wasn't much, just a flicker of doubt, a second's hesitation. But that was all I needed. I watched it all unfold, the way they thought they were winning, the way they believed they had me trapped in a corner. But they didn't realize it yet. They were signing their own confession. I waited until the last possible moment, until they were sure they had won, until they had signed the paper that would seal their fate. And then I made my move. I opened the red folder in front of me and pulled out an external disk drive. I plugged it into my laptop, connected it to the projector, and waited for the screen to flicker to life. The silence in the room grew thick, a tension that was nearly unbearable. Austin's voice wobbled as he demanded, "Where's the check? Where's the money?" I didn't look up. Instead, I watched the projector come to life and the screen filled with grainy black and white security footage from December 24th, 2010. There on the screen was Carlin, clipboard in hand, shoving it into the hands of a 13-year-old me standing there lost in the snow. The timestamp flashed in the corner, 6:42 p.m. The world was about to change. Carolyn's face went pale, her eyes widened, and for the first time she looked at me with something other than contempt. She looked like she was being caught. I didn't say a word. I just watched. The trap had been set, and they had walked right into it. The tension in the room was suffocating as I pulled out the signed affidavit, sliding it across the table toward Caroline and Austin. They still didn't understand. They thought they had won, that they had outsmarted me, but they hadn't seen the real trap yet. I placed the affidavit in front of them, the one they had just signed, claiming 15 years of care, claiming to have supported me all those years. I let them stare at it for a moment, letting their arrogance build the anticipation. Then, I reached into the folder and pulled out a check. It was the same one from Uncle Silas's account, the $500 check written to Caroline with the note, "Final payment for Carlin." I placed it on the table in front of her, letting the weight of it sink in. Their faces began to change, but they didn't realize how deep the hole was. Next, I laid down the receipt from Best Buy, the one for the $499 Samsung TV they had purchased just 2 days after they kicked me out. The receipt was faded, but the memory was as clear as day. They had sold me for a television, and here was the proof. Caroline's hand trembled as she reached for it, but I wasn't finished. Finally, I pulled out the stack of tax returns, years of them, each one filed with my name as a dependent, each one signed under penalty of perjury. I let the documents fall onto the table with a thud. They had claimed me year after year, all while I was gone collecting $180,000 in benefits. The silence in the room was deafening. Caroline's face went from shock to pale, and Austin's hand clenched into a fist. They couldn't deny it anymore. They were trapped in their own lies. They thought they had outwitted me, but now their crimes were laid bare, and there was no escape. As I walked out of that room, something shifted inside me. The weight that had burdened me for years, the shadows of the past, all seemed to vanish with each step. I was free, truly free for the first time in my life. The battle was over. I had exposed the truth, and in doing so, I had reclaimed my future. The question that lingered with me, though, was, what is family? Is it blood, or is it something deeper? Loyalty, trust, respect. Those are the things that make a family, not just the people you're born into. In the end, I learned that family isn't defined by what you're given. It's defined by what you're willing to fight for. So, what does loyalty mean to you? If you've ever had to choose your own path or found strength in unexpected places, share your thoughts with me. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Your voice matters, and who knows, your truth might be the one someone else needs to hear.